Okay. How's everyone doing? Good. Any questions or comments? Requests for refunds?
Maybe you're still thinking about the airplane.
Okay, remember.
Maybe you're still thinking about the airplane.
Still thinking about the airplane?
With the request for refunds.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, really, that whole experience with the plane, that's the perfect model for everything. That we're always on that freaking plane. That's it, and it's always not cooperating with our plan. Sometimes it seems to for a while, but and then it doesn't. Pretty much guaranteed. I don't think anyone's plan is for this body to wear out and die. Right? But that's pretty well guaranteed. When things don't go according to our plan, our expectation, our desire, we have this kind of assumption that the world should run itself in accord with the desires of this one individual. There's 7 billion people, but not even forget about the animals and the insects and the plants. Just human beings. There's 7 billion of them. And it's interesting that we have a name, out of all those 7 billion, we have a special name for one of them, which is I. And then the other 6,999,999,999 is the others. Right. The Dalai Lama, actually, there's this sort of meditation that he sometimes will lead people through, which is I think this provides a valuable perspective. The old-fashioned scales, like the scales of justice, where you got the 2 pans. He says, okay, so in your mind's eye, you visualize a scale like that, and in the one pan, you put yourself, that individual, Dean, Tommy, Michael, whoever, okay? Then the other pan, you start piling in all the other 7 billion, right? All aboard. And then, and watch, which way does the scale tip? Which way does the scale tip, right? Who's more important? The welfare of one person, that for some reason out of all of them we picked one to give this special name. Me, right? Like those tags, those name tags at conventions, they stick on things. Hello, my name is me. And then everyone else gets one. Hello, my name is other. Right? 7 billion other tags, only one me tag. And we all agree. We all agree that there's a bunch of others and one me, but we all disagree about who the me is. To me, it's obvious that it's me. You bunch of dum-dums think it's you. But you is not me, you is you. And clearly, you don't matter as much as I do. Right? That's the way we experience. We have to really do some kind of practice, some kind of shaking up of our perspective to, like the Dalai Lama's little meditation there, to broaden the picture, because it sure keeps feeling like this one is the most important, more important than all the others.
It's interesting, in the Christian religion, they kind of set that scenario up, but then Christ, being even God, said that it was more important to take care of all of the other people than even him as God.
Yeah.
He would then sacrifice himself for all the others.
Yeah.
But I think one of the problems that people have with that is they know what they want. They don't know what the other 7 billion want.
Yeah, there's that detail. We don't know what everyone else wants. But, well, I think that a lot of the time we do, We know what we can do to help others. I think that, to me anyway, this is my take on it, that whole example of, you know, the sacrifice of the Christ is there, again, as we were saying before, he's modeling a certain kind of behavior. And there's all this stuff that he clearly says in the Gospels, which is basically, do what I'm doing, and what I'm doing you all can do. You all exceed this.
The measure of a man, what would Christ do?
Yeah. And what we wind up doing instead is putting him on a pedestal. And it's not unique to Christianity. It happens, you know, in all the paths. We make Jesus special, or we make the Buddha special, or you make your guru special. And by making them special, what you're doing is you're getting yourself off the hook. You know? Well, he could do that because he was born of a virgin. I was born the usual way. Right? So, you know, so I can never qualify. I can't pass the physical. Right? So all of that, and again, this is just my perspective, is all of the, and you know, from what I've read, that what seems to be the history of the stuff, all that kind of myth making of people being born of virgin, and there's stuff like that about the Buddha too. You read, there's the early sutras, which are just transcripts of the Buddha's teaching. And there he's just a guy, he's a monk. In one of the early sutras, some stranger comes along to where the Buddha and all the monks are camped out, and he says, which one of you is the Buddha? He says, because you guys all look alike. You're all wearing the same robes, your heads are shaved. And someone says, oh, the Buddha is that one over there. Right? He has to be pointed out because he looks completely ordinary. Okay, now you look at the way the Buddha, the way the Buddha has become an icon, like this one I got sitting here, and his head's not shaved. This is wrong historically. This is the Buddha of our imagination, where he's got that special weird hair. You know, the hair's always in little curlicues. You know where those curlicues come from? Greece. That's, if you look at Greek sculpture, they've all got the, you know, little knotted, curled up hair. Right? Because there was all this, you know, trade and commerce and cultural cross influences, you know, going out throughout the whole Mediterranean area. And then there's all these legends come around that he's got the curly hair, but he's got this big bump on the top of his head. And this is the stuff in the later sutras where they start getting really poetic and all this hyperbole, and everyone else has got their guru coming along, so you got to prove that my guru is better than your guru. So you have all these stories. There's a virgin birth story about the Buddha. His mom had a dream about being pierced in the side by the tusk of a white elephant. And that's how she conceived the Buddha. And he couldn't be born the usual way. He had to be born in a special spot. I've been to this spot, by the way, and you can buy trinkets and stuff, you know, just like going to any, you know, Catholic pilgrimage spot, and where his mom was leaning against a tree, standing up. She gave birth to him standing up because he's special. And he came out, and he walked 3 paces and turned around and pointed at the sky, and he said, "This is my last rebirth." Meaning, I'm going to get enlightened this time. You know, all this stuff comes along, and on one level, they're wonderful stories. You know, they're really inspiring, and they're fun, and they're all really telling us cool stuff about ourselves. But if we take them, again, this is just my view, if we take them literally and as the specialness of the awakened one, then we can never be like that. And not only does that mean on the behavioral level, we can never be the one to take care of others like Christ did, but on the consciousness level, I can never be awakened like the Buddha was. You're creating this distance by putting, you know, I guarantee you, when no one was looking, Jesus and the Buddha picked their noses like anyone else. Maybe even when people were looking, maybe they were cool with it. I don't know. They pissed and farted and belched like everyone else. In those old Bible movies, they didn't do that. They're always bathed in this kind of holy light and so forth. And that also is beautiful. That's talking about we have this intuition of this essence of what the Buddha is, what the Christ is, what we are, which is something pure, sublime. It's our essence. It's the nothing. That it's the perfect, delicious emptiness. It's beingness. It's awareness. Awareness doesn't have to fart and belch and pick its nose. It just is. Wow, it's like light. It's like space. So on the one level, it's perfect that we have these icons, these representations to inspire us with that inner truth of what they are. But see, if we mix it up with the outer reality, I think that's where it becomes counterproductive. Seems to me. Is this making sense? You hearing this? Good. What else? As always, I always, whenever we do any of these kind of on-ramp activities, like tonight the on-ramp was intoning Om Ahum, that there's nothing absolute about any of these on-ramps. You can take any on-ramp. You take the on-ramp that's comfortable for you. The important thing is getting the express lane as soon as possible and forget about the on-ramp. So if you happen to like intoning those syllables, great, God bless, you can use those. Otherwise, do something else. Just do some nice conscious breathing in and out, or just rest your gaze on a spot or on an object, or go walk to the beach and rest your gaze on the surface of the ocean or something. And you probably, some of you found that the more you practice, the less important the on-ramp stuff is. But again, one of the big kind of points of confusion that happen for a lot of people because of the way this stuff is often taught is like, okay, this is the way to do it. You have to chant this syllable. You have to sit in this posture. You have to, right? And then people wind up working hard at that thing, and then they miss the essence, which is non-work, which is letting, which is being, not doing. But we do a little doing to transition from all this complicated doing that we've been running around all day doing, called our so-called lives. And so we taper down from complex doing to just some simple doing, chanting a mantra or focusing on your breath, and then from simple doing we go to just being. Hang out, whatever comes and goes within that beingness. Nothing to do about it, it's all perfect. At the end, always take a few minutes to allow the body to come back up to the surface. Simple. I like simple. What else? Anything else on anyone's mind?
So in the stories about the Buddha, did he help people who were physically in need with physical help? So
physical help? How do you mean?
For example, Christ fed the 5,000 with fish and bread. Mm-hmm. Did Buddha perform miracles, or did he help people in need with actual need, or advocate? So Christ would say, sell everything you have and give it to the poor. And he said that, didn't say it to everybody, but he said it to some individuals.
Yeah, to sell everything you have and give it to the poor, he said to this rich guy.
Lazarus.
Lazarus is the poor man.
Lazarus. There was
Yeah,
one Lazarus
yeah.
risen from
Dives.
the dead.
Yeah,
Wasn't
maybe
there
you're thinking of
another
Di-
Lazarus who was a rich man?
I don't know, but there was some rich guy, some rich guy, and he got really inspired by Jesus and said, "You're my guy. I'll do anything. I want to follow you. Tell me what to do." And Jesus says, "Yes, sell all your stuff and give the money away." And he goes, "Oh shit." Right, right, and of course, all these stories, are endlessly analyzed and debated, and it's not that there's one right interpretation, but I see in that story at least two levels of interpretation. One is the one that you're talking about, which is, oh, you're helping other people. That's always a good thing. On the other level, this is practice. I mean, both levels are practice, but this is, oh, there's this thing you're attached to. Okay, let's see you let go of it.
Thou shalt have no other God.
Yeah. I mean, and actually, we have in modern times an example very close to us, very very close to that, which is Ram Dass. Okay, a lot of you are familiar with Ram Dass, the American psychologist Richard Alpert, who was at Harvard with Tim Leary in the early 60s, doing some of the early experiments with the effects of psychedelics, and then they got thrown out, and yada, yada, yada. He went to India. He found his guru, Neem Karoli Baba, who gave him the name Ram Dass, meaning servant of God. And Ram Dass was like, this is it. I found the guy. I found what I was looking for in all the thousands, and in his case, literally thousands of acid trips, and just all this going up and down and up and down. And in fact, there's a story, we may have told this story, but I was actually just writing something about this story today on the plane. So in case you haven't heard this story, so there's the Richard Alpert, now freshly reborn as Ram Dass, now so happy he's found his guru, found the one he's looking for, found the person that for him embodies the infinite, embodies everything he was looking for, and all the psychedelic voyaging and so forth. And he's there now, hanging around at Neem Karoli Baba's ashram for several days. But after several days, he starts to get this little nagging doubt in the back of his mind. He starts to have the thought, yeah, but some of the stuff I saw on LSD seemed really powerful. It seemed really big. Is the place that my guru Baba coming from, is that bigger than that? Does that take that into account, or is the acid in some way bigger, and that's a bigger thing that Baba doesn't know about, right? So in other words, has this guru that I found here, has he put the acid in its place so I can forget about it? So he just starts having that nagging thought, and suddenly he gets the word from the back of the ashram, Baba wants to see you. He's calling you to come up to the front of the ashram. And he goes up, and Baba says to him, I should hold up a picture of him. He's here on the altar.
This is Ram Dass or his guru?
No, this is his guru. This is Neem Karoli Baba. Yeah. And so Baba calls him up and says to him through the translator, because he doesn't speak English. He says, and Ram Dass and a companion, another American, had been driving around India in a Land Rover, I think it was, and he says to him, he says, you've got some pills in the car? He says, yeah. He says, bring me, and he brings. He's got like a cigar box with, and so he starts handing him some vitamins. He's thinking, well, the guy's old, maybe he needs some more pep, so give him some vitamins. And he goes, nay. He says LSD. And Alpert had some special it's like super powerful triple dose tabs of acid compounded for the trip, you know, in case of emergency, break glass kind of thing, right? And so he says, you want the Baba said, yeah, the power pills. He says, you mean LSD? I said, yeah, LSD. So he gives him a tab and he goes, nee, more. And he gives him, so he basically gives him a handful of these powerful acid tabs, and Baba takes them and
All at once.
yeah, just eats the handful of acid. And Alpert goes, well, this should be interesting.
Western scientist.
Yeah. So guess what happens? Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. And I've heard Ram Dass tell that story a couple times. Generally, he says, that's all I know. That's the end of the story. Of course, I, being me, will always, try to explain things a little bit. So this is just, as far as it goes, my understanding, which is, if you're sitting there, you're just sitting here in the chair, and I've got a cup of hot tea, and I throw it out, and you're going to feel it. Okay? But if you're sitting in a hot tub, and I take a cup of hot tea and throw it on you, it's nothing. So an awakened being is sitting all the time in the hot tub of infinite consciousness. So any finite consciousness altering substance, whether it's acid or whatever, it's going to roll off your back. It's nothing compared from where you are. It's nothing. So that answered that question. Oh, but the getting back to what the story I was going to tell. So Alpert's father was a very rich man. He was the president of the New Haven Railroad. Okay. He was a multi-zillionaire. And Alpert, or Ram Dass, he's in the same situation as this guy who came to Jesus. Okay, you're my guy. Just tell me what to do. I know you're the path. You're the way, the truth, the life. I'll just do whatever you tell me. So one day, Bob again calls him to the front of the ashram. He says, you should let your father know that you will not, under any circumstances, accept your inheritance. Okay. Yeah.
He didn't want it given to him. A lot of gurus do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, a lot of gurus, they want your money. They want your, and in fact, he did not. Most gurus, at least, they want followers, right? They're collecting followers. He spent his time avoiding followers. He would travel around. They had these different ashrams in different parts of India, and he would tell everyone, okay, go to this ashram, I'm going to take the train to that, and then he would get off at a different stop. And it was like a big game of hide and seek. He'd be running away from the disciples all the time. And of course that just made them want to run after him.
Why did you do that?
He
eccentric, or there was a reason?
My sense of it is, for what it's worth, my sense of it is, first of all, certainly from his side, he didn't need it. And a lot of people who are so-called teachers, so-called gurus, and they need to, it's like they need followers. How can I be the teacher if I don't have students? I mean, and I look at this a little bit in my own very small way, doing these Tuesday night sessions and, flying off and doing occasional workshops here and there, because I really love doing this. I get off on it. and I'll question that. I'll check in with myself. Is this okay? Is it okay that I really, is it okay that I have good meditations when I'm leading the group? That it sharpens my own insight when we have these discussions and we're delving into our insight. I think it's okay. I think it's serving a purpose. I think if we start by acknowledging that this side of full enlightenment, and I'm not certainly on this side of full enlightenment, there's always going to be some ego involved. There's going to be some attachment involved, and just okay, there it is. Keep your eye on it.
So you're saying he was testing his motives?
No, that's just me. In his case, my sense of it is he didn't need anything. He didn't need followers. He didn't need to teach. He didn't teach. He never taught meditation. He never taught. He just was. As Ram Dass said, it's like he was the sun and we were the flowers. In India, they call that darshan. Darshan means like presence. You just go to be with the teacher, not to get the teachings and take notes. You're there to just get the suntan. My old teacher Maharishi used to say that for someone who's really the real guru, the real awakened being, he's like a magnet. And where you put all the iron filings next to the magnet and they all align with it and then they become little magnets themselves. Something like that.
Was the Buddha one such as that, or was he more of a teacher, do this, do that?
Well, the Buddha gave a lot of teachings. Very specific teachings. My sense of it is that he was also very charismatic at the least. There were lots of people flocking around him. But there's different ways of doing it. Some people, it doesn't mean that one way is higher or better than the other. It's a matter of the particular quality of that teacher. Maharishi was. Fuding, you were around Maharishi. I remember the first time I was in a room with him. It was in Squaw Valley in 1968, and he walked onto the stage, and I was like, "Whoa, he's made of light." It was like we didn't have the word hologram in 1968, but it was like he was a hologram. He was just like, and you could just feel that radiance. But Maharishi was all about giving teachings. Right? And are you okay, Liliana?
There's a bee, I think.
No, it's
not a bee.
Okay. So let the bee be.
No, as long as we don't step on it.
Yeah.
Or crush it.
Right. But Maharishi was all about giving systematic teachings that you could then take away with you, so that it didn't depend on being in the room with him. It's a different way to do it. One time I was in the group, we were in Maharishi, and I think this is in Majorca, and this one guy gets up and says, "Maharishi, my dearest and only friend," he said, I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of being messed up. I'm tired of not being enlightened. I know you can do it. I know you have the power. Please give me the juice. Zap me. Give it to me now. And Maharishi chuckled and he said something along the lines of, I'm not sure that he exactly said, well, I could do that. He did. He said something in words to that effect. Well, I could do that. But then what would happen? Some people would flock around, some people, a couple of 100 people or a couple of 1,000 people, and then it would be done. What's much more valuable is if I give you some systematic procedure that doesn't depend on me being in the room, doesn't depend on any one person. And this was Maharishi's genius. This was his way of functioning. Was he took a bunch of, you know, sad sacks like us, you know, we did, well, hippies and acid heads, and, you know, took us off the street and gave us haircuts and neckties and said, memorize these procedures, right? He had us memorize basically so we would teach in exactly word for word the way he did. And then, you know, and then he tested you. You had to be tested on all these teaching procedures, word for word. And then you passed. Now you're a teacher of, in this case, his particular method was called Transcendental Meditation. And then I went back to the States, and, you know, I remember the first time I did that, do this procedure, you do this little ceremony, say these words. If the person says this, you respond that. If they say this, you respond that. And lo and behold, they all transcended. They all experienced that, you know, settling into that openness. I was like, wow, all I did was say some words. What a miracle, you know? So that's a different way to do it. You know, and I functioned as a TM teacher in that way for a lot of years. Now, in my case, again, it's just different paths for different people. In my case, I got to a point where I was no longer comfortable being from my point of view, the TM organization started getting squirrely. Maharishi started charging people too much money, and some other weird stuff started happening. And also it was too constrictive, just saying teaching with a memorized script all the time, you know. I mean, for me, it felt like, okay, it's like when you first learn to play music, you play these notes, you keep playing it off the sheet music, you play the same notes every time, and then you're playing correctly. But there's a point where you're ready to play jazz. You know, you're ready to, you know, if you own the notes, if you own the scales well enough, then you can start to play around with them in a more creative way that's still going to work and still be true.
Yeah, like along this line, let's say when I was studying with Maharishi,
yeah.
Well, he's a quantum physicist. So I learned more about quantum physics than I did with anything. So when we're doing the Yoga Sutra, some of you know the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, they give you the superordinary powers, levitations, and so on. Maharishi had a presentation of that. He called it the cities. So as among those who took it, and you know all about this, but it's very structured. You know, quantum physics is this and this and this, and then there's going to be the first part. You're going to get into pure being, and then you'll have a sutra, and then because this is everything is some potential, you'll drop that seed, etc. It was very clear, and it got me up to a certain point. You know.
Right.
Okay. Then, as a contrast, not better or worse, but it's just where we are at that specific time. Anyway, my particular path now took me into a shaman, Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements. So I was real close to Don Miguel. Now his way of teaching was very different, and it's kind of like what you were talking about with the difference between, let's say, Maharishi's way and, let's say, the shamanic way. And the shamans, what's different is, at least in my perception, is kind of like what you were saying. Once you get down the melody, the truths of stuff, so to speak. Well, if you're a shaman, if you're a priest, let's say a good one, you follow these rules and follow it good, and then it does the trick. But for a shaman, it's more like an individual jazz improvisational genius or something. You have to have the melody, meaning you have to have the basic truths. Okay, then let's say Don Miguel with over and over. No, you teach it your way. You teach it your way. Look at your background. You're an Eastern. You got a background in kung fu and art. You know, work it all in. So he gave full permission. You do it your way. You know, improvise off of these basic. No, you have to have those truths at point. But once you got them, just do it. Be creative. You know, so it was so, for me as an artist, it's so liberating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was the Maharishi out of a university in sciences?
Yeah, yeah. Maharishi held, I believe, the equivalent of a master's degree in physics from Allahabad University. When he first met his guru, who was Sri Brahmananda Saraswati Maharaj. He was the Shankaracharya of Jyotirmat. Okay, there's 4 what they're called mats. Mat is spelled M-A-T-H. In the 4 corners of India that were established by Adi Shankaracharya, who was like a great foundational teacher of these non-dual teachings of so-called, you'll hear it called Hindu philosophy, but really this whole basic understanding of the non-duality, the non-separateness of what we call I and the infinite deliciousness that the I is looking for all the time. That's not 2 things, it's one thing. That we're always looking for ourselves and how to just relax into oneself. So Shankara, the story on, got to wrap this up, it's cookie time. But briefly, there's just so many great stories about this stuff. India is a country that has this extremely rich tradition of all these dozens and hundreds of different schools of philosophy and school and styles of practice and different deities, and kind of culturally, we think of in the West, we might think of, India, the land of meditation, everyone's very serene and calm. But actually, their culture is very much about argumentation and debate and we'll figure this out. So they literally had this tradition of debate, which was when you'd have a meeting of 2 masters of 2 different schools of philosophy, they would have a debate. And whoever lost the debate had to become the disciple of the other one. And all of his disciples, of course, would follow him.
Who's the arbiter of the winner?
I don't know. I'm not deeply enough read in this stuff. But supposedly Shankara, Adi Shankara, and by the way, even the names always mean stuff like Shankara is one of the names of Lord Shiva, so it's the liberator. It means the liberator. And Acharya is teacher, master teacher. So Shankaracharya is the teacher of liberation. And Adi, A-D-I, means the first. Adi, right? Duo, 2. Adi, not 2. Not 2, right? It's like Advaita. It's like so his name actually means non-duality.
Interesting.
It means one without a second. But usually you'll just see this translated as the first Shankaracharya. And then all the teachers in his succession are called the Shankaracharyas. So you had the Shankaracharya in the 4 corners, the 4 mutts that he established. But so the story is that he was like the undefeated heavyweight champion of the debates. So like all these, he just went around India collecting all the, defeating everyone and everyone becoming his disciples. I mean, how much of this stuff is exaggerated in the midst of legend? Who knows? They're great stories. And he did all that and then died at the age of 35.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shankara.
Yeah. That's what. So whenever you see pictures of him, there he is. This is like the only picture of him you ever see. This painting, and you can see he's quite young because he age 35 he was done. So when Maharishi was still in school, still in college, he met his guru, the Sri Brahmananda Saraswati Maharaj, who was the Shankaracharya of the north, of Jyotirmat. And he said to him, okay, that's it, I'm done with school, I don't want to finish, I'm going to drop out of school, be your disciple. And his Gurudev, his teacher, told him, no, you go back, finish your degree. It's going to be important someday. And that's exactly what you were talking about, that his path wound up being to bring these teachings, and he was just so instrumental in the 60s and in the 70s he's really the one that established in the West, meditation is not just this weird, exotic, mystical Eastern stuff. It's a scientific thing. And so he was not oriented, as you're implying, he was not oriented toward the arts. You know, when he wrote books, all this stuff was about the science of being, the science of creative intelligence. It wasn't the art. You know, he didn't get art.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't his function. That wasn't what he was built to bring to the world. He was bringing something else important. And I think it's just, you know, I've found that it's been very important to me, and it took a while, it took a certain amount of maturity to get away from this thing of, okay, there's got to be someone who's the teacher teaching the way for all the people. No, it's going to be, you know, this teacher for these people and this teacher for these people. And also for oneself, there might be someone who's going to be like your 5th grade teacher, who's going to be a really good 5th grade teacher and then get you ready to go on to the 6th grade teacher. And you don't have to turn around and condemn the 5th grade teacher in order to go on to, that's called immaturity, when you feel that you have to do that.
Yeah, I feel like with my experience with Maharishi, this in 68, 69 when I think his genius, at least I'm concerned, was, wow, he spoke in the language of our times, in this case, quantum physics.
Yeah.
If you're into clear thinking, which he was, oh wow, what a nice path. It was kind of incontrovertible truths that he was sharing.
Yeah.
And then I remember when we were in the Himalayas doing these those Yoga Sutras, we'd have panel discussions between mystics and quantum physicists.
Mm-hmm.
And they would compare these points. And it was like, oh, so brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, an irresistible appeal to my intellect. And, you know, soaked it all up, and it allowed me to do the thing.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, on the downside,
right.
I had worked with this one, another Swami Kaleshwar, and he was, you might know, Sai Baba. He's in that lineage. So he's one that would, and then he's, you know, manifesting things out of thin air, kind of thing. Like, whoa, wait, this is the first time I've actually really seen it in person. I mean, I've read it, of course. Oh, and here's an image that's a great. Don Miguel's mother was a powerful curandera, one of his principal teachers. She was maybe 6 feet tall, you know, and she was maybe in her 90s at that time. Anyway, so opposite her was Swami Kaleshwar. He was real black, a dark-skinned Indian. He was 25 at that time, and he was manifesting these stuff. So, at one point, since Mother Sarita, that woman, was studying with Sai Baba, you know, so there was kind of an interesting cross-cultural thing because she's a Mexican curandera tradition, and now she had so much respect for the Indian system. So I love that kind of elective affinities, you know, coming. Anyway, so one time we were having a workshop with Swami Kaleshwar. Okay, then a car rode up, and it was her. She had come up. Someone drove her up from San Diego to pay respects and all this stuff. So he says, so go outside and get some flowers. And so he picked some flowers, okay. So when she came up, and then they're paying respect. So then he goes like this, you know, like he's standing up, and he held his flowers, and everybody thought, how nice, how sweet. But he goes, no. And here was a perfectly manifested necklace of semi-precious gems that he put over her neck to pay respect to. Uh-huh. That was a moment.
Right.
And not only was it a visual moment, but being there, you feel like in this meditation kind of thing. I was real high from this meditation, by the way.
But sleight of hand, like a magician, or are you suggesting
No,
that
he taught us that. That was part of it, because he would do things like, okay, you see this hand, this is fire, element fire, and this is earth, and so on. This kind of very esoteric stuff. And I don't quite know how to use it. He says, so what do you do when you rub these two fingers together, fire and earth? And somebody says, ash? You know, vibhuti, you know. And boom, all this ash comes falling down. You know, people, wait, are we seeing what we're seeing? So people caught it, you know, like a little, then pass it around. We all kind of instinctively put on our foreheads. I even tasted it. If you ever wake up in the middle of the night and want to know what vibhuti tastes like, as far as I'm concerned, it's like talcum powder, but it's a little bit sweet. Anyway.
A lot of people hearing a story like that would would be incredulous without, you know, some kind of.
Yeah.
Can
yes,
you
and it
reproduce
kept
it?
going. Like there's another person that studied with Don Miguel. Her name was Christine. She had a necklace, and anyway, she had gone to India, and a number of Don Miguel's people were going to this thing. So at the end, he was manifesting stuff as a little present. So one guy got a ring, another guy got.
So those are miracles equivalent to Christian miracles, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I don't know what the Christians think.
But in a
according
way,
to me, it's not-
it would show or validate the extra power they have. But again, a lot of people would be skeptical.
They
about
could
it.
say, of course, because people who are stuck in their heads are going to say,
Well, they've
this
never
goes
experienced
beyond.
anything like that in their
Right,
life.
so then
and
they
can
don't
they
know what to do
reproduce
with
it
it.
in front of scientists or something?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Can they reproduce it in front of reliable witnesses?
I'm sure, I have no doubt. These are not parlor tricks. And I want myself now, since I've studied with the Yoga Sutras, and it's not miracles. They are more subtle there are applications of more subtle laws of nature. So let's say the levitation thing, you know, we've talked about it. Okay, at the beginning, it's not like boom, you hover. No, it's a practice. So you start bouncing, and then you're lighter and lighter, and then, you know, I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor, and I'm bouncing to, let's say, where you're sitting, you know. It gets lighter and lighter and lighter. If you're seeing somebody invisible, it's not like boom, they're gone.
Do you
It's
think
like,
they
oh,
actually
the edges.
levitated when they were trying to do that, or they were just bouncing around and still quite
Well, I was in that program.
held by gravity?
I was in that program that you know that Fu Ting is talking about, where Maharishi was having us work with these formulas. I usually don't talk about this stuff much, but we were. But you're here tonight, so we're talking about.
The cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. I mean, there's no big secret. You know, it's all in the historical record. The stuff's getting to be history now, but Maharishi, like the first phase of his teaching was, okay, TM, 20 minutes, simple, natural, effortless technique, 20 minutes twice a day, TM in the AM and the PM, and then after several years, and he got a kind of an established base of people meditating, then he introduced this second wave, which was out of the Yoga Sutras. Now, so the Yoga Sutras, written by Patanjali, are these formulas. It's like a cookbook, which is, okay, if you want to manifest X in the environment, you do Y in your consciousness. And they're formulas, but they only work fully if you're fully awake. If the consciousness in which you're doing Formula Y is completely present, completely vivid. This is the idea. This is what it said. Let me explain it in the simplest understanding that I have, which is, look, what happens when we meditate? Before we were meditating, it was like we were a little broken wave. And we're looking out on the surface of the ocean. Here's all these other broken waves. I'm isolated from them, right? There's this one wave, like we were saying before, called me, and the other 7 billion waves called, you know, Tom, Dick, and Harry. And we're all imperfect, and we're all doomed. All the waves crash against the shore and die eventually, and we keep bumping into each other, right? That's regular life as most people experience it. Then you find meditation. What happens in meditation? The little wave melts into the ocean. I'm not just this little imperfect, isolated wave. I'm boundless, silent ocean. And everything I was looking for, all of my little desires, all my little problems, all my little puzzlements, all dissolve into this, what I really am, when I just melt into my base, which is ocean. Okay, that's meditation. Then you do that for a while, but you start alternating, ocean wave, ocean wave. After a while, it becomes more and more clear, even as you're living your life as the wave, that, oh, I'm still the ocean. That any distinction between the two turns out to have been artificial. So that we can sit in a chair, we can talk, we can drive automobiles, do all this stuff, and all the time, at the same time, we're doing it from our level of just pure boundless oceanic beingness. Okay? This is the stuff we talk about all the time here and that we're practicing all the time. Now, within that framework, how can we understand this idea of siddhis, which, you know, the supernormal powers or so-called miracles, right? Well, if I'm the ocean, and if I'm experiencing all the time that I'm the ocean, then all the waves, including not just this wave that I call Dean, but also including the wave that I call this chair over here, and this wave called Tommy over here, and this wave called all these books over here, all those waves are just different manifestations of what I essentially am. Right? If I am the, and you know, we all are the ocean, but if I consciously am the ocean, that is, I'm fully awakened, then making anything happen on the surface with the waves, in principle, is easy. It's kind of like, okay, wiggle this toe, that wave, that's equivalent to this wave jumping up in this way. Wiggle that toe, it's like this wave jumping up in that way. Do you get this in principle? Is this making sense to you? Okay. So essentially, I can do anything that I want.
The followers have always wanted a demonstration of that.
Yeah, right. But here's the thing.
In third
Wait,
person,
okay, wait. Hold on. Let me complete one more thing. As I was saying, you can do, in principle, you can do anything you want. The hard part is wanting. The hard part is wanting. You can do anything you want once you've realized yourself as the ocean. But by virtue of the fact that you've realized yourself as the ocean, what more could you want? The nature of that oceanic boundlessness is complete fulfillment. So you know, it's like, remember when you were a little kid and you get, man, when I get to be a grown-up, I'm just going to eat cookies all the time. Right? I'm just going to play with toys all the time. And then you get to be a grown-up from that point of view. You just don't, you have the ability, you could eat cookies all the time, but you don't have the desire anymore.
But even Ram Dass wanted proof with his guru of what he was experiencing.
Yeah, and we see it, and again, you've seen it, you read it all the time in the Gospels. Everyone's going around saying, hey, Jesus, do some tricks, do some miracles. And what does he say? Oh, you generation of vipers, right? You nest of snakes. That means who you won't believe unless you see a sign. Right? They're not the point. Look, Neem Karoli Baba, there's hundreds of stories of him performing siddhis. If you're interested in this stuff, the most fun book on this topic is called Miracle of Love. It's all the anecdotes about Neem Karoli Baba, which Ram Dass and some other people collected after he passed in 1973. Okay? And I mean, there's stories of him. I know we've gone way past the time, but we got to do this, right? Okay, we're going to end in a minute.
It's destiny.
Yeah, all these stories of him, you know, like turning like, you know, Jesus turned water into wine. There's stories of him turning. There's all these people coming, and they don't have milk for them, so they fill the jugs with water from the Ganges, and he turns it into milk. Okay, and there's people alive today who supposedly saw that. My favorite story is one where he was sitting in the barber shop one day getting his beard shaved, and the barber, as he's shaving him, he's telling him about how he quarreled with his son, his adult son, and several months before, and the son got angry and got on a train, went somewhere else. He doesn't know where his son is. He's so worried about him. He misses him so badly. Suddenly, in the middle of his shave, half of his face is shaved, the other half still has lather on it. Baba says, I gotta piss. And he gets up out of the barber chair and he goes outside for, 3 minutes, and then he comes back and the barber finishes shaving him. The next day, the barber's son shows up, comes off like the noon train or something, and has a big tearful reunion with his father. And Father, I'm so sorry that we quarreled, and I got so mad, I ran away, I went to this such and such city, which was, a couple of 100 miles away, Now I'm back in. And the father said, oh, I'm so happy to see you. But why did you happen to show up today? And the son says, well, it's a funny thing. Yesterday, I was there in that other city, and all of a sudden, this little old fat bald man came running up the street to me and said, you have to go see your father. You have to get on the train, go see your father. There's something very persuasive about him. And the funny thing is, he had shaving cream on half of his face. So there's all these great stories like this. So all these stories of Baba doing siddhis, but whenever people would ask him about siddhis, he would say, and this is the direct quote, it's in that book, Miracle of Love. He would say, quote, siddhis are pig shit. Right? Siddhis are pig shit. In other words, my understanding, it's a distraction. It's kind of cool. It's kind of a nice confirmation that everything in the so-called real world really is just a manifestation of consciousness, and that consciousness that thou art. You are that. When you fully realize that you are that, then it's trivial to, if I'm consciousness, I can move myself, which is consciousness, in this way, and that'll be seen as things flying around the room and so forth. But, and this is a line in the Yoga Sutras where Patanjali, after explaining how to do these formulas, to do all this stuff, levitate and understand all the language of all the beasts and see the past and see the future and see all that, and he says, but the realized person can see the karma, can understand why the universe is going the way it is, and he doesn't revolutionize the universe. He doesn't turn things upside down. He sees the kind of the wisdom, the rightness in the way things are going.
It's like flowing with the Tao.
Yeah, flowing with the Tao would be, yeah.
And one thought about the miracle bit from my experience. The reason I don't use that word, like the word supernatural, so I've come to understand, no, it's not supernatural. I use the word superordinary, okay, yeah. because it is nature. So let's say, go back to the yoga, let's say with the levitation thing. There's a principle in there. And so, let's say for me, at my level of evolution, I really started hot, and it was get lighter and lighter. By the way, this required 20 hours a day in your room meditating or sleeping for months. So it was very intense practice. Anyway, so what I've come to understand, so on one level you can say, oh, he didn't levitate because he didn't hug her. But the principle of levitation was definitely put in. I would not have been able to do what I was doing. Now, some of it was muscular, but not all. That's the thing. So the way I've experienced, I've been like meditating, and now the first day I thought I was being very visual, and the sutras had something visual, and I thought I'll game the system, trying to get a shortcut or something. After the first day, this is hours and hours, oh boy, your brain gets tired. Okay, second day, okay, and then again, nothing happened. And then the third day, my brain was so tired trying to think of it this way and that way. So I relaxed, and then bam, something went up from inside, scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
What the fuck happened? It was so weird. Oh, quantum physics, and then I could relax. And then pretty soon it hot more, and then lighter and lighter. I practiced for 10 years. But at the beginning, just like the Wright brothers' flight, you could say from the outside, that, oh, it was a hop more than a flight. In a way, it was, it's only a few hundred yards that it flew. However, why it is considered the flight is because it's the first time they put in a principle of Bernoulli's, airfoil and so on. There was a scientific principle. Likewise with the levitations, and there wasn't only levitation, superordinary senses of smell, etc., all kinds of stuff. But anyway, the reason I say, that is levitation, because the principle of that Yoga Sutra took off.
Yep.
So then I knew it was flight. And then in my case, as a matter of fact, I said, the hell with the dusty world of the 10,000 things. I'm going to stay here in the Himalayas and do this thing, see how far I can go. Right. And then the voice said, no, where you belong is back in an urban center finishing your project. And I looked around, there was nobody for a mile around. I was all by myself on this trek. But I knew, that's not my destiny to do that thing. Let's come back to the world and so on. So that kind of throws some light on where everybody has their path.
Yeah. Okay, we got to wrap this up. We can talk more about this over tea and cookies. Um, let me just say this about this word miracles. I would say that word, that's a relative thing. You know, if you're a Stone Age native living in Borneo, and you see an airplane go overhead, to you that's a miracle, right? Now, to someone familiar with metallurgy and aeronautics and all that stuff, that they're using laws of physics that the native in Borneo is not aware of. They're using a higher level of physics. So to them it's not a miracle, it's just, this is the way things are. So, you can, one of the reasons it's fun to have grandchildren is you can, you can pull a quarter out of their ear and they're just really bad. To them it's a miracle. To you, no, you're using some principles there. Right? But all the teachers wind up saying this stuff is possible, this stuff makes sense in principle, but it's not important. That it's interesting that this book I was talking about that tells about all these so-called miracles that Neem Karoli Baba is supposed to have done, the title of the book is Miracle of Love. That's the real miracle. That's the thing worth doing. That's the thing. I was having this whole, with, some of you know Rupert Spira, and you know that he's one of the teachers I'm most inspired by. And I was on a retreat with Rupert a couple of years ago, and I was really trying to pin him down on this thing because there's just no bullshit about him. He's not tied to any traditional, he doesn't accept anything because it's tradition. He knows the traditions better than most people, but there's just not an ounce of dogma sticking to him. And he's just about the clearest thinker on this stuff that I know. So I was really trying to pin him down on this. And yeah, he confirmed that, yeah, from his understanding, basically everything I just said, which is that yeah, in principle, you could do anything because it's all a manifestation of awareness, and that awareness is you. Not you an individual, you awareness, you beingness. But, he said, let me ask you this. If I gave you a choice that you could either have the power to walk on water or the power to love your wife 10% more, which would you take? I went, okay, boss, I hear you. Amen.
So you walked on water.
Okay. So we're gonna end it here. Let me remind you, if you're interested at all in the day-long retreat on August 25th, we're close to half full already, so you should get your thing in soon. And we'll do this again 2 weeks from tonight. So may all beings swiftly realize their true nature, the true happiness, awareness, beingness right here, right now, and thus may all conflict and suffering spontaneously dissolve. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.